Welcome to the Blue Collar Nation podcast, the podcast dedicated to making the lives of home service professionals better. Now join Eric and Larry to talk about all things home service.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. Larry and Eric and all kinds of amazing people here on the Super Profit Community Live that we have every Tuesday afternoon. And we've got some great information that's happening here. Eric's going to be sharing wonderful things about working with your team. And we had these situations come up. We'd have this great guy working for us, great person, and we promote them because they were so good. And they were good at the task. They weren't good at leading. And it would blow up. And we lose our best tech because they wouldn't last. And then we lose that position that we moved them into. So it was a bit of a challenge. And Eric came up with a great solution, which he's going to go over today. Eric, how are you, man?
I'm good. We are going to talk about
Wonderful.
training and hiring middle managers or service managers. So, look, it's super important as we get bigger to have competent and caring management team. You know, the owners, we can't do everything ourselves. We try to too often, right? And we don't build a scalable business because we become the bottleneck. So as we start to increase in size and volume, we start to need people to help us manage the team, especially in the field. And I'd like to start the whole thing, Larry, with a painful story from you and I. We had our best technician, and he was an awesome guy. And we felt I think we felt like we owed him something in a way because he was so loyal and helped us get our business off the ground. So when it came time for us to meet our first kind of field manager, service manager, we felt that it was the right thing to do to give him the opportunity to do that. Well, being new to this, we didn't train him for that. We didn't really think too much about his personality and how that might affect his ability to do the job, or didn't give him any training on how to lead or manage people. And we threw him in there and said, "You're the boss." And he was all excited because he got a new title and, some more money. And it blew up in our face very, very, very quickly because in retrospect, we were doing that out of a sense of loyalty, not out of a sense of, is he a good fit for this job? And I didn't train him. I just threw him in. It's like, yep, I got things to do. Go get him, Tiger. Make it happen. Right. And then what happened was he wasn't the right person for the job. So he's miserable and he doesn't know what to do because I haven't trained him. And the team's miserable because they're not being led well. And next thing you know, you run the risk of ruining your culture, which you and I put a lot of time and energy and effort into. And now I've taken my absolute best technician and they're miserable. And I'm going to have to let them go from that position. And as probably everybody kind of knows here, once you have
You
moved
don't
up,
move backwards.
you don't move back. Right. And to his credit, he stuck with us. He didn't, after we moved him back to being a tech, he did not quit, but it was never the same again. The level of loyalty, the level of commitment from him, he was hurt, and we were too. And I'm sure that we're not the only person on this Facebook Live that's had this happen, right? Like this is common. And so you and I, we might have made that mistake one more time, and then we figured it out, right? So not the quickest learners, but we
Few
had to
times.
start
I
we
wouldn't
had to
say
start
no.
figuring out how do we do this the right way, right? So what we started doing is we leaned on disc, right? Larry and I we learned the tool of disc for, look, you could use disc, you could use culture index, you could use Wonderlic. I mean, there's Myers-Briggs, there's a whole bunch of them. We chose disc. And the first thing we had to overcome was the classic mistake of putting the wrong person on the wrong seat on the bus, right? Which is what we had done twice. And so now we were like identifying what type of person is a good service manager? What traits do they need? What kind of comes naturally and is it within their skill set to do? So that the first thing we started doing is putting a job description together that also had a component of how their wiring had to be. The next thing we started to do was create a training program for a new manager, right? And we're going to start that training program before they become a new manager so that they can step into that job having at least a chance of succeeding. Right. And too many of us don't do that. Like we just throw them in and go, good luck. I hope you know how to swim. Right. We just threw you in the deep end. So what I did was I went and bought a whole bunch of copies of John Maxwell's Leadership Gold, which I love that book for home service. It's short chapters, they're like 5 or 6 pages, right? It's got like 26 chapters if my memory is correct. So I could teach a small lesson over a period of time each week. And I just created like a leadership academy. And I said to everybody in the company, hey, anybody that wants to become a manager here is going to have to go through this program, right? So I'll be here every Wednesday night from, I can't remember, 5:30 to 6:30 or something like that after work. I said, I'll give you a book. This is not mandatory. If anybody doesn't want to come or be a manager, that's totally fine. And it's going to be on your own time and your own dime. Now granted, you got to check to see if that's legal in your state or whatever, but like my whole thing was, you have to show me that you're invested in yourself enough to grow, right? So it was really interesting. So we had, I don't know, 20 people in the class probably that thought they would want to be a manager. And as we started to have these small discussions, that I'm only donating an hour a week of my time, right? But I'm teaching and kind of trying to weed out who are the people who actually could be managers here. And it was so interesting because they hadn't had the job yet. And all of a sudden, I'm getting people coming in my office going, hey, boss, I don't think I want to be a manager. Can I just stop going to the Wednesday night class and go back in my truck? Because I think that's where I'd be best suited. Absolutely. No problem. Right. I just circumvented
Investment in
losing
one book.
somebody.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It cost me, $10. Right. And not all the heartache of trying to put you in a. And what was so interesting was the people who tended to be my best technicians were the ones saying, I don't think I want to be the manager. I don't think that's going to make me happy. And then some of the people who I was kind of like, yeah, maybe not the greatest tech I've ever had. But guess what? As soon as we started leadership training, they were the ones who were getting it. They were the ones who were like, I want to lead people. I want to do this. And that one thing that we did, which I did for years, I just kept repeating it. As the book would end, I'd start it again. And that created an entire group of people who ended up becoming our management team. And it was a great way to weed them out without losing people. We all know once you have somebody, especially someone you like, and who's done an awesome job for you, the last thing you want to do is put them in the wrong position and then lose. The person that I was talking about earlier had been with us for years. He was like amazing. We want to lose that guy. Right. So, yeah, the classic mistake that I think most of us make is we just throw them in the deep end of the pool and expect them to know how to swim. Larry?
I think part of two things. You got to add time into training somebody. You promote someone to a manager doesn't mean it takes sometimes more training than for a technician because you can have a built-in system. You do that over and over. Training management is something different, and your training leadership is not as easy. Granted, you can share books and send them away to school, but there's nuance because you have to work with them. And
Yeah.
also, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, that's was something the class that you had when you were trying to show people they could be managers. Some of the guys that said they're not going to be good at it, Cole, Jaime, years later, they started their own company because they learned from that book and the things that we taught them over here. They weren't ready at that point in time, but they would have been better ready for it in the future. So you're planting seeds by introducing these concepts to your team.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
Yeah. The other thing that I think about when I think of that is just I have a friend who is a high level executive at a Fortune 50 company, right? Huge company. And he and I were riding a chairlift skiing one day, and we were talking about managing people, and he manages lots of people. And he said, Eric, my career took off the day that I realized that my job was to train people. That wasn't an interruption to my real job. My real job was training people, right? So he
Yeah.
just recognized that, like, we all have it, like see Jordan's here. Jordan walks into my office, it's like, hey, Eric, I need to know how to do this. And right. And I'm like, oh man, you're interrupting what I'm doing so I can train you, right? But the reality is my job as a leader or an owner is to train, Jordan or Larry or Christy or whomever, right? And the sooner that we can all get our head around that we have to leave, like Larry said, a certain percentage of our work time to training, the faster we get better, right? Because
Yeah.
what's the alternative? We keep going through people. Well, that's super time consuming too, and it's more costly. So,
But also, you're training the people to do your tasks. If they're
right.
management in their position, they're taking some of the tasks you would expect,
Yeah.
taking
Look, I
some of
mean,
your work off of your plate.
we had three main managers. We had a cleaning department manager, a restoration manager, and an office manager. If you added the amount of time I spent with those three people over the years to get them to just be able to run on their own, like you'd be like, wow, that's a lot of time. But as soon as we got there, or even some version of that, they're saving me time every single day. I had to front load my effort to get all the ease later on. And sadly, I think a lot of us don't do that. We just always find a reason to be busy, or that we're too busy to train. Right. So, yeah, I think part of it's just our wiring too as entrepreneurs. We just want to go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And what's the saying, Larry? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Right.
And you
I'd rather
start
slow
slowing down,
down,
everything goes
get it
better. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So, yeah, I think having some sort of internal training program is pretty crucial. Um, some of the books that I like I said, Leadership Gold, anything by Zig Ziglar, Dave Ramsey has Entree Leadership, great book, right? Howard Partridge has the 5 Secrets of Phenomenal Business, awesome book for this too, right? Um, and then, obviously you can go on YouTube or whatever. There's all kinds, there's no shortage of training. Shameless plug, we have service manager leadership training videos at SuperTech University once a week for somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes to go over a lot of the same lessons that I was giving with our team live. I like to think those are good, Larry. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, they are
I
good.
mean,
And
look, I lived it. I've been in home services since I was 15, starting as a technician, and I was a service manager for many, many years, and then an owner. So, like, if nothing else, I've walked the walk, done the work.
yeah.
I know what the guys are up against, coming both from management and from the technicians. Because that's the thing with a service manager. That person has to be willing to kind of be the bad guy in both directions, right? They're getting in trouble with the owners because it's not going perfectly, and then the technicians feel like they're getting thrown under the bus. Like the service manager's stuck in the middle. It's a little bit of a thankless job, and that person has to be trained to understand that that's their role, right? Their role is the buffer between the office and the field in many ways, right? So, Larry, we can. I got about 5 minutes before I have to go. You can keep going, obviously,
Yeah.
with Q&A or whatever. But like, I think, if I was going to start from scratch, the first thing I would do is try to identify who I think has potential using some tool like DISC or something. Who has the potential to be a manager? And now I'm going to start, whether it's having the class or having some one on one time or whatever, I'm going to start investing in that person to see if they might want to start moving up. And then I'm going to start some formal training. And then, obviously, as a manager or an owner or whatever, then we have to start blocking off portions of our calendar to do this, right? And like that's depends on the size of your business too, how easy that is to do. But maybe having that person ride along with you a lot of the time and you're walking them through, this is how I do this. This is how I talk to a client. This is how I talk to a vendor. right? And then, if you have more time and maybe a little bigger company, then you can actually do that, whether it's a digital version or whatever, you can create a training program for that. So
Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Nation podcast. For more information about Eric and Larry and Supertech University, please visit us at supertechu.com. That is supertechu, the letter U.com.